Now read this.
Hello and welcome back to Now Read This, the Castle of Llyr, Chapter 12, The Tomb. The bard, like Terran, had dashed headlong into the wall and now struggled to his feet. Gurgi's yells rang above the screeching of the bats. Prince Room stumbled to Terran's side and threw his weight against the immovable rock. The bauble had rolled into a corner, but one glance in the light of the glowing sphere showed Terran there was no other way in or out of the chamber. "Glue!" Terran called, pushing with all his strength at the blocked passage. "Let us out! What have you done?" While Gurgi, jabbering furiously, beat his fists against the unyielding stone, Terran plunged against it once more. Beside him, he heard Prince Room gasping with his own efforts. Fluda shoved and heaved mightily, lost his footing, and sprawled to earth. "Little worm!" the bard shouted at the top of his voice. "Liar! You've betrayed us!" From the other side of the stone came Glue's muffled voice.
"I'm very sorry. Forgive me. But what else am I to do?"
"Let us out!" Terran demanded again, still straining to move the rock. With a sob, half of anger and half of despair, he dropped to earth and scrabbled desperately at the loose pebbles. "Move aside, heavy stone, evil, wicked little giant!" shouted Gurgi. "Take away lockings and blockings, or rageful Gurgi will smack your great feeble head." "We would have done you a kindness," Terran cried, "and you repay us with treachery." "I say, that's true enough," called Prince Roon. "How do you expect anyone to help you if they're buried in here?" Faint though it was, a sobbing sound drifted from beyond the blocked passageway.
"Too long," moaned the voice of Glue. "Too long. I can wait no more in this ghastly cave. Who knows whether Dalvin would care about my fate? Very likely he wouldn't. It must be done now. Now!"
"Glue!" Terran said, forcing himself to be as calm and patient as he could, for he was convinced the giant had taken leave of his senses. "There is nothing we alone can do for you, or we would have done it before this."
"But there is, cried Glue. "You shall help me with my potions. I'm sure I can brew another to bring me back to size. That's all I ask. Is that too much?"
"If you want us to help you cook up more of those dreadful messes you fed Leanne," called Fluda, "you're taking a curious way to win our friendship." The bard hesitated, and his eyes widened in sudden dismay. "Great Bellin!" he murmured, "as he did with Leanne." Even as the bard spoke, Terran's legs began to quake, for the same thought had occurred to him. "Fluda," he whispered, "he is indeed out of his wits. This cavern has driven him mad." "Not a bit of it," replied the bard. "It makes excellent sense, in a nasty, horrible fashion. He has no one else to try his concoctions on." He pressed to the stone and cupped his hands around his mouth. "You shan't do that, you wretched, snivelling worm!" he shouted. "We won't swallow your evil stews, even if you starve us. And if you try to cram them down our throats, you'll learn that a flam can bite."
"I promise," pleaded Glue. "You won't have to swallow a thing. I'll take all the risks myself. Terrible risks they are, too. I suppose I should turn into a puff of smoke and blow away. You never know when you're dealing with such recipes. It could happen."
"I wish it would," muttered Fluda.
No, Glue went on. "This won't hurt you a bit. You can be sure. It won't take more than a moment of your time. Half a moment, and I shall only need one of you, only one. You can't say that's asking too much. You can't be so selfish."
Glue's voice had risen to a frenzy, and he had begun shouting and wailing so loudly and rapidly Terran could barely make out the words. But as he listened, Terran felt the blood drain from his heart. A chill held and shook him as Glue babbled on. "Glue!" he cried, despair welling up in him. "What do you mean to do with us?"
Please try to understand, returned Glue's voice. It's my only chance. I'm sure it will work. I've thought it over carefully ever since I've been in this awful hole. I know I can brew the right potion. I have all I need except one thing, one tiny little ingredient. It won't hurt you a bit. You won't feel a thing. I swear it to you.
Terran gasped in horror. You mean to kill one of us? There was a long silence. Finally Glue's voice reached the companions again. It sounded as though Glue's feelings had been hurt.
You make it sound so raw.
Great Bellin, shouted Fluda. Let me get my hands on your scrawny neck and I'll make you sound raw.
There was another silence.
Please, said Glue faintly, try to look at it from my side.
Gladly, said Fluda. Just push away that rock.
Don't think it's easy for me, Glue went on. I'm fond of all of you, especially the little fuzzy one, and I feel dreadful about the whole thing. But there's no chance anyone else will stop down here. You do understand that, don't you? You aren't angry. I'd never forgive myself if you were. Even now, he added plaintively, I don't know how I'll ever bring myself to pick out one of you. No, I can't. I haven't the heart. Don't ask me to put myself through that torment. No, you shall decide among you. That will be your best all round. Believe me, Glue continued, it will be worse for me than it is for you, but I'll shut my eyes so I won't see which one of you it is. Then, after it's over, we'll try to forget about it. We'll be the best of good friends, those of you remaining, that is. I'll lead you out of here. I promise we'll find Leanne. Oh, it will be so good to see her again, and all will be well. Don't go away, said Glue. I'll get a few things ready. I won't keep you waiting.
Glue, listen to me, called Terran. This is an evil deed you plan. Set us free. No answer came. The rock did not move.
Dig, friends, cried Fluda, drawing his sword. Dig for your lives.
Terran and Gurgi unsheathed their blades, and side by side attacked the ground beneath the ponderous stone. With all their strength they thrust into the rocky, unyielding earth. Their sword points rang on the pebbles, but try as they would, they could barely scrape away more than a shallow hole. Prince Rune sought to force his sword under the rock, but succeeded only in snapping the point off the blade. Terran picked up the bauble. Bending to hands and knees, he scanned every portion of this prison, hoping to find some crack or tiny opening the companions could enlarge. The walls rose sheer and unbroken. He has trapped us well, said Terran, sinking to the ground. There is but one way out, the way Glue offers us.
As I consider it, said Rune, he asked only for one of us. That would leave 3 to keep searching for the princess.
Terran was thoughtful for a moment. For the first time, he said bitterly, I believed I had guessed where Mag meant to bring Eilonwy, to Caer Calor. It is the strongest clue we had gained. Now it is useless to us.
Useless, said Rune. Not at all. We need only do as Glue suggests, and the others can be on their way. Do you expect that feeble worm to keep his word? Fluda asked angrily. I would trust him every bit as much as I would trust Mag. Nevertheless, said Rune, we can't be sure until we try.
The companions fell silent at the Prince of Mona's words. Gurgi, who had crouched on the earth and wrapped his woolly arms around his knees, stared wretchedly at Terran. Gurgi will go, the creature whispered faintly, though he trembled so much he could hardly speak. Yes, he will give his poor tender head for broilings and boilings. Valiant Gurgi, murmured Terran. Indeed, I know you would give up your poor tender head. He patted the frightened Gurgi. But there is no question of that. We must stand together. If Glue wants a life, he shall pay dearly for it. Fluda once more began digging and chipping at the rock. I agree with you entirely, he said. We must stand as one, to the extent that we have any choice at all. As soon as that little fellow comes back,
Oh, drat and blast! I don't know why I keep thinking of him as a little fellow, except that he impresses me that way no matter what his size. He'll surely seize one of us. He hasn't the honour of a flea or the heart of a gnat, and he's desperate. If we fight him, there's a good chance all of us shall be slain." "You cannot mean we should take Glue's bargain," said Terran. "Certainly not," replied Fluda. "I shall stand sword in hand and smite the little fellow about the knees, since I can't reach his head. I only mean to point out the risks. As far as his ridiculous idea of having us choose among ourselves is concerned, I don't think it's even worth a thought." "I do," said Prince Rune.
Terran turned in surprise to Rune, not fully understanding his words. The Prince of Mona grinned at him almost shyly.
"It's the only thing that will satisfy Glue," said Rune, "and for that I think it's a very cheap bargain."
"No life can be so cheaply held," Terran began.
"I'm afraid that you're wrong," answered Rune. He smiled and shook his head. I've thought a great deal about this since we've been in the cavern, and there's no sense not facing facts. I don't see that I've been any help whatever. On the contrary, I've brought nothing but ill luck. Not that I meant to, but it seems that's the way of it with me. So if any one of us can be dispensed with, why, I should have to say that person is myself." "It's true,"
Rune quickly went on, disregarding Terran's cry of protest.
"I'm delighted to be of some use for once, especially if it will help Eilonwy. I assure you I won't mind in the slightest. As Glue says, it will only take a moment." "There's not one of you who wouldn't give up his life for a companion," Rune added. "Fluda Flam offered his life for ours in Leanne's lair. Even now poor Gurgi is willing to offer his."
He raised his head.
"A bard, a humble creature of the forest, an assistant pig-keeper."
Rune's eyes met Terran's, and in a low voice he said,
"Can a prince do less? I doubt I should ever really be able to measure up to being a true prince, except in this."
Terran looked at Rune for a long moment. "You speak of measure," he said. "I had measured you as no more than a feckless princeling. I was wrong. You are a truer prince and a better man than ever I believed. But this sacrifice is not yours to make. You know my oath to your father." Prince Rune grinned again.
"Indeed, a heavy oath," he said. "Very well, I shall lift it from you. I say," he added, "it's astonishing, but I wonder what became of all the bats."
Hey, you want to buy something? You can check the description for my books and audiobooks. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content.